It's been one issue after another as the crisis within the People's Democratic Party seems to be worsening. A faction led by Samuel Anyanwu, the embattled National Secretary, who had earlier been suspended by the PDP's National Working Committee, announced the suspension of the party's national chairman, Umar Damagum. The state of confusion in the main opposition party continues to diminish the party's chances in 2027. Former Governor of Ekiti State, Ayodele Fayose, has said that recent developments within the People's Democratic Party indicate that there is no hope of the party returning to power for now. With the defections that have hit the PDP and the party still trying to get it right on the national level, is it truly over for any candidate that intends to contest under the umbrella of the PDP in 2027? Joining us on the show to discuss the state of affairs in the PDP and if their quest to return to power is still possible is Funso Doherty, a 2027 PDP governorship aspirant in Lagos State. He would also discuss the demolitions in the Owo-Nshoki area of Lagos State and the 15% import duty on fuel imports. Good morning, Mr. Doherty. It's good to see you.
Good morning.
On the morning show.
Good to see you. Good morning, Rufai.
Morning.
Doctor, good morning.
Mr. Doherty, I think it was Senator Gabriel Suswam who said, I think on this same table, that the PDP is in the intensive care unit, ICU. So while the choice of a party that is in the ICU, in fact, some people have given up on the PDP because of the current crisis, because of the factions that have emerged. But that's where you have pitched your tent this time around. And you say, well, APC should not think that they will continue to dominate power, particularly in Lagos State. You want to run in 2027.
Absolutely.
This Lagos State looks like it's locked down. President Tinubu wants a second term, and he will need Lagos State for credibility purposes. So is it that this PDP, they just bring candidates in Lagos State just to run and run and run, knowing that as long as the Godfather is in charge, nothing is going to move?
Well, thank you for that question, Doctor. As they say, I forget who said it, the rumors of the death of PDP, I think, are greatly exaggerated. Do we have internal issues? Yes. Are there internal crises? Yes. But the battle for the soul of PDP that is going on is beyond PDP. It's a battle for the soul of the party, but it's also a larger battle for democracy in Nigeria. Because at the end of the day, if we don't have opposition, we don't have a democracy. And if you look at the landscape today, no matter how you might want to cut it, PDP is a main opposition to the APC. Even despite all the defections, the largest group of governors you will find remaining is in the PDP. In the National Assembly, the largest group you will find is the PDP. Even amongst those who have defected, the governors may have defected, the Assembly may have defected, but there's still the electorate. And the jury is still out as to where the electorates stand. Because at the end of the day, elections are not just about people, they're about parties. So that remains to be seen. I think that when you think about the internal crisis within the PDP or the internal disagreements, however you want to call it, yes, there are disagreements within elements within the PDP. And we need to take responsibility for that and fix those things. And we are working on them. But I think those also that say we should not look outside the party for sources of some of that crisis, I think are being naive. Because the truth of the matter is that there are elements within the party which are loyal to interests that are outside the party.
Like who?
And those actions...
Like who?
It is well known, for example, that the Minister of the FCT is serving in this present government.
He says the opposition is the problem.
He may say so, and that's what I expect him to say. You see...
Is he no longer a member of the PDP?
No, he may be a member of the PDP, but you see, we have something that we call, which you know very well, given your extensive experience and legal background, something we call conflict of interest. This is when you are in a position where you have conflicting interests. And once you are in that position, we have to take everything you say with a pinch of salt. And we have to understand that you may not always be acting in the interest of one side because you may be favoring the interest of the other side. And if there are elements within the party that are loyal to a person who has a conflict of interest, an obvious conflict of interest, a declared conflict of interest, a conflict of interest that everybody knows, then you can understand why it is that fire will be added to anything that seeks to derail the direction in which the party is going.
All right, okay, so let's talk about, Lagos State. We talk about the PDP's chances, but beyond that, at the last election...
Which I don't quite agree with anyway, but we can come to that.
At the last election, the PDP didn't quite show up very strongly in the polls. So it would be great to see how you hope to change that, especially looking at some of the decisions of this administration. Yes, if you want to appraise the APC governorship, that's under Governor Sanwo-Olu, you would say he has done quite well in infrastructure. One area he has been consistently criticized for is in his demolition moves. The Oronshoki one is the latest, and a number of people have spoken out. The Oba of Lagos, Oba Akiolu, has even said that the demolition must happen with a human face. I'd like to get your thoughts on it. You know, we've had the candidate during the last election of the Labour Party here speak about it as well. And I know that you're also quite big on infrastructure, how it can be better managed in Lagos State. What's your take on it?
So I will speak about the demolitions in the context of the larger infrastructure discussion as you've raised the question. You see, one of the views that I have is that whilst we can point to certain elements of infrastructure as being being the product of governance in Lagos, and in pointing to those, say we are perhaps better off than other states because we may have more of these infrastructures.
Yes.
I think it is an insufficient yardstick to judge the quality of governance in Lagos because we have more resources to deploy to this infrastructure. So you would expect, as a normal thing, to have more infrastructure here than you have in other states. The yardstick should be more one of saying, what do we have for the resources that we have deployed? And could we have had a lot more in Lagos? I also think there's an over-focus on infrastructure and an under-focus on quality of life and the things that impact the daily living of citizens. And that's a much broader discussion, and we can get into it, but there are things like education, healthcare, and so on and so forth. Now, coming to your point about the demolitions.
Yes.
So, demolitions in Lagos, they're not all the same. So there are some where they come and they say, structures are built, illegal structures are built on floodplains and so on and so forth. They're likely to cause floods and so on. So they have to bring down those things. Yeah. There are others, and the Oronshoki appears to fall into this, where they say that the primary driver is one of urban renewal. Yes. Right? Now, what you are seeing is the outcome of a process of lack of transparency, of a process by which things are done in secrecy. And therefore, by the time you now come and start implementing, this is the kind of outcome that you are going to see. Because if you say you want to do urban renewal, this is a process that starts with engagement right from the beginning. It has to be transparent. People have to know what you are doing, and you have to carry people along and then make alternative provisions. And so that by the time you get to demolitions, it's not as if you're starting from the end, right? There's a process that you've undertaken. This is how it's done in developed countries. We're not the first state or the first city to undertake urban renewal. Yes. Let me give you an example. Lagos State, under the APC, has this thing they call model city plans. So you'll do one for Lagos Island, do one for Koshofe, and so on and so forth. Yeah. Presumably, this being done now is part of the Koshofe model city plan. There was one done from Lagos Island. I'm from Lagos Island. All right. When that thing was done, it was not in the public domain. You couldn't find it on the internet, the draft. There was a draft final report that was done. There was a small thing in the newspaper that said, if you want to see this thing, come to three or four locations and come and look at the document. And you go there, you look at the document, and you leave. Right? I was particularly interested. So I made the effort to get somebody there and get some of those plans. One of the things that earlier plan provided for example, was a lot of reclamation around Lagos Island into the lagoon to develop as a means of raising finance to do the flooding work that needed to be done on the island. And I wrote and said, you can't do that, right? First of all, this thing has to be put out there. Secondly, why are we reclaiming land with the environmental risks and then engaging private developers only in a bid to raise money? Are we not doing flood control in other local governments? Why must, on Lagos Island, why must we sell our waterfront land in order to do flood protection? And thankfully, as a result of some of those agitations, which were not in the public domain, a revised plan came out, which now recognized the environmental risks associated with reclamation and essentially took that portion of it, addressed that portion of it, amongst other things. So I use this to say that what we are seeing is the outcome of a process of lack of transparency, a process by which deals are done. And it's not just this, we see it also in PPPs that are done in Lagos. And it is when issues arise that we know that issues have arisen. So this is how I would characterize the Oworonshoki thing. I would say two more things, just in conclusion. First is that it is also evidence of failure in terms of investment in housing in Lagos. I think the government has not done enough to address housing on the scope and scale at which it needs to do it. And we're seeing that also play out in this question of urban renewal, because these are people who are, they say 60-70% of people in Lagos live in informal settlements. Housing we need is orders of magnitude more than what we have today.
You said there were 2 points. What's the second one? You were in concluding that. So you said
the other thing is that
the housing,
So the other thing is that government is paying compensation. You pay compensation, so suggests that a harm is being done to somebody. That's when you're paying compensation. If a harm is not being done, you won't do compensation. So implicit in that is the fact that there's a harm. They also came in the middle of the night. That suggests that you are doing something that cannot be done in the light of day.
A couple of things. So you're somebody that is known to advocate a lot, but your dilemma is that you are in a party that is factionalized, the PDP. I'd like to ask you, what faction are you? That's the first question. Part of your advocacy was on the coastal road. In fact, you are saying you challenge the figures of 7 billion per cost per kilometer, that is 21 billion that you wrote about in your paper. Leading up to the last election, you also talked about the role of Alpha Beta. What's your grounds as regards those two issues?
Okay. First of all, I question the whole terminology of factions, right? I believe that there are internal disagreements. The working committee met and took some decisions. Some people have made an alternative statement. To me, I don't use the word faction. I think faction, the use of the word faction is associated with a larger agenda, which is, and I will just mention this briefly before addressing the other two questions. If you paid attention, you will notice that a judgment came out within just this last week, sacking a lawmaker for decamping from PDP to APC, right? On the grounds that he was elected on the platform of the PDP. So this suggests that the stakes are higher in terms of saying that there's factionalization within the PDP. Because you remember that factionalization is one of the grounds on which the campaign is allowed. And you know a lot of people have decamped from PDP to APC. So I think that's part of that larger agenda. So I reject the term factionalization in the first place. Now, to your other questions, you asked about the coastal road, and what was the third?
And the Alpha Beta.
Okay. With respect to the coastal road, I mean, look, this is basic math. I'm not an engineer, but I'm a chartered accountant by training. I'm also a chartered financial analyst. If you spend so much in naira or dollars for so many kilometers, the cost per kilometer is a direct division. And if you do that, you get to 22.5. You can then cut it, it's a 6-lane road. You can then cut it and say, okay, if it had been a 1-lane road, what would it have cost? If it had been a 2-lane road, what would it have cost, right? But the truth of the matter is that we spent about 1 trillion for 47 kilometers, which by direct division, simply, plain language, is 22.5 billion. per kilometer of 6-lane road.
But the minister says 7 billion.
Well,
Okay. Alpha beta.
So the point being before we get to alpha beta, whether it's 22 billion, whether it's 7 billion, we would not be in the position of discussing 22 or 7 billion if you had done what you ought to have done. If you had not awarded the contract on a single source basis to somebody without going through a procurement process. That's why people are challenging you. And that's why people are saying your cost looks high, and it does look high. But if you had the safe harbor of saying that, well, we went through a process, nobody will shout, right? I am in court on this matter because I believe that this is a seminal matter.
So who did you take to court?
We took the Attorney General of the Federation.
Okay.
We took the Bureau of Public Procurement.
Okay.
And we took High Tech. There are 3 defendants in that matter.
Okay, Mr. Doherty.
Now, on alpha beta.
Yeah.
Alpha beta to me is a travesty. I think that the fact that we're by who instituted it, who is our current president instituted alpha beta. I think that should not be. I think alpha beta, if they played a role in terms of helping to organize.
But you don't have evidence that is linking the president to alpha beta. Why do you say he's the one?
No, I didn't say it. I said it was instituted. It does not have to be. That's a separate matter.
Okay.
Which, time will tell, because there are ways of finding out those things ultimately. But the institution of it and the structuring of it and the fact that it exists till today, I think is a travesty. Okay. Much of the work of tax collection in Lagos is done by the LIRS. I have been managing director of 3 companies in Lagos. They are national companies, 2 of them, but they're headquartered in Lagos. I never received a letter from Alpha Beta. I receive letters from LIRS all the time. It's LIRS agents that come and do the work. So why are we paying those huge sums to an agency that is basically record keeping, which we have a whole arm of government, the Inland Revenue Service, set up to do? So if given the opportunity, I will unwind that thing.
Okay, very quickly, Mr. Doherty, we're running out of time.
Yes, sir.
I would like the answers to just be short and specific. Now, the PDP has an establishment in Lagos, led, I hope I'm correct, by Chief Olabode George. Do you have his blessing? Who are your supporters? What chances do you have of, winning at the level of the party primaries? The other one we'll have a lot to talk about is this 15% fuel tax on imports. You have to be extremely brief.
I will be brief.
Because we've run out of time.
I will be brief. With respect to the party, obviously I joined the party over a year ago now, almost about 14 months ago now. And, I'm interacting with a lot of the leadership, including Chief Bode George, who is, a father figure, right? And one of the principal leaders. So we have, a great relationship. The party primaries are the party primaries. We know what those are, and we'll go through them. And the outcome will be the outcome, right? But I have no fear that we will not succeed, in the primaries. Now, I want to touch on this 15% import duty, because I think it's important. Nobody's arguing that you should not protect industries where industries need protection. But let's not forget that the argument that is being made is that one entity can supply all the petrol for the entire country. One entity. And that entity needs protection by increasing the amount of money, ultimately, that people are likely to pay at the pump. These are people who have borne a 5-fold increase in fuel price in the last 2 years. You remove the subsidy. You have now gone beyond removing the subsidy. You now say you want to tax on top of price. If we are going to do that, and you say you are justifying it on the basis of a private sector player that needs support, we need to really understand, does he really need support? What are these costs that he says he needs to recover? Because we are taking money from the pocket of the people that is going to ultimately end up to the benefit of this entity. So before we do that, we must be very sure that this thing is indeed justified. And it is
that
indeed
the idea was to
doing.
encourage local competition, not to protect a private sector player.
No, ultimately,
government was very clear.
This is what is going. No. Let's be clear. no refinery is going to come up within the next year or two on that scale. What we are talking about is going to be a transfer of resources from those that are paying that will ultimately inure to the benefit of, and we're not saying it's bad, but let's understand it. You can't just tell us that we should take it. No, we need to understand it. And that's why my recommendation, and I wrote to the National Assembly, was that you need, and this is what National Assemblies in functional democracies do, they represent the people. So call the players, call the parties, let's understand it. You are asking people to pay more by instituting a tax. Help us understand why is this the right thing to do before we put additional burden on people who have suffered a crushing burden over the last 2 years.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Doherty, for joining us on the morning show. And we wish you all the best as we look towards, 2027.
Thank you.
Lagos election.
Thank you.
But this is all you've been criticizing President Tinubu.
We have not started yet.
Okay. Anyway, thank you very much.